What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the God Next podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Baldwin. My co-host, Donovan Moore.
What's going on, fellas? Happy New Year.
Yep. Happy New Year,
fellas.
everybody. B, it's playoff time, man. How you feeling?
I'll let you know when we get to each matchup, but exciting time. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. I also have a front runner for my new favorite team, so we'll be talking about that a little bit. But the Commanders, the Steelers are in the playoffs. It's playoff season. Everybody will be going through each of the playoff matchups, picking who's going to win and everything like that, and picking who we have going to the Super Bowl. So without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Three-pointers. Outside jumper for three at the bucket.
All right, E. We'll be kicking off the playoffs. Saturday's matchups. We got the Chargers and the Texans, guys, for the first playoff game of the year. B, how do you feel about this matchup here?
Man, I was really kind of disappointed in the season the Texans had, to be honest. I'm not going to go so far to say I don't think C.J. Stroud's that good, but I didn't think he was as good as everyone was hyping him up to be last year. So adversely, I'm going to say he's not as bad as people are saying he is this year. He has lost a lot of strength at wide receiver. But I have no doubt in my mind that the Chargers are a little better coached and have a better quarterback. The Chargers are obviously a much improved team. They haven't been completely consistent. They've pretty much only beaten bad teams. However, due to the division that the Texans play in, I almost have to include them as a bad team too. So I think the Chargers are going to win this game. I just think they're a little more fundamentally sound, entered the playoffs on a higher note. And while I think it will be low scoring, I think that favors the Chargers because I do think their defense is stronger because they have playmakers like Khalil Mack and Derwin James. And they have good coordinators as well, especially on the defensive side of the ball with Jesse Minter. So they're a fundamentally sound team with more confidence. So I have to lean towards them in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm taking the Chargers as well. Their defense has really been a huge difference for them this season. I believe they're top 5 in almost every major category in the NFL. They've been great. They've been well coached on the defensive side of the football. And the Houston Texans have been struggling protecting C.J. Stroud this year. He's been taking a lot of sacks, and they also have a lot of injuries, as Pete mentioned. At the receiver position, you're down Diggs and Tank Dell. So Nico Collins, I feel the Chargers will try to take him out of the game and control the clock, keep the ball away from Houston. So I'm going to take the Chargers to win in a close one just off their defense and a strong ground game victory.
Ooh, okay. All right. So, Donna, you pick Chargers. You pick Chargers, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going Chargers here. All right, I'm going Chargers here. I like what I've seen from them all year. Honestly, with actually not that much talent, to be honest with you. Like on paper, we did not look at this team and be like, automatic playoff team or anything like that. Obviously, Harbaugh's first season, but it's been a success, I think, to say the least. So happy to see them here. Like B said, I think the Texans would say themselves that this was a disappointing season. They probably didn't expect to see themselves here. Obviously, Stephon Diggs tearing his ACL and then Tank Dell breaking his leg. It's like I don't know what the future is for this team at this point because they looked really good coming in. And then, Stephon Diggs is already old. Tank Dell's already had multiple leg injuries, so I don't know where they go from here. But, Nico Collins is still elite. Joe Mixon, started off the season really good, kind of fell off at the end of the season. We'll have to see what he looks like this week. But, yeah, I'm going to go with the Chargers. I trust their defense. I think on both sides they're just more fundamentally sound, like B said, and I feel like they're just kind of they're more consistent. You can kind of count on what the Chargers are going to give you more than what the Texans give you. So I'm going to go with the Chargers in that matchup. Next up, we got B's Steelers facing off against the Ravens in Baltimore. How do you feel about this? What was it, the third matchup against them this season?
Third matchup. And I'll be the first to say I don't know how much you guys remember previous seasons, but this season really reminds me of the 2020 season in a lot of ways. Chiefs and Bills, top 2 seeds in the AFC. That seems like it's the case almost every year. But Steelers started 11-0 in 2020 before it all fell apart at the end of the year. This year they started 10-3 before it seems like it all fell apart, and they just forgot how to play football, and they got blown out by the Browns in the first round of the playoffs. A small part of me, believes the Steelers do have a little fight left in them just because they historically and, all up until 3 weeks ago, play the Ravens really well. And they didn't have George Pickens in that game. And this time the Ravens aren't going to have Zay Flowers. However, Zay Flowers isn't, a top tier player on their team necessarily. He's their best wide receiver, but he's not what the team has ran through. That's Derrick Henry and Lamar. And I feel like the momentum of these two teams is going in such opposite direction that it's going to be difficult for the Steelers to set it another path and score the major upset here. I do think they're going to fight harder than what Vegas in the point spread is making it out to be, but I just don't think they have the team to compete here and go in and outscore the Ravens. I think their offense is too weak and they're too confused with how to fix it.
I think this will be an extremely close game. The Steelers and Ravens always play each other tough, and in the third matchup with somebody you already played twice a year. One thing we can expect is going to be a physical defensive style of football game. And one weakness, well, maybe two for Lamar, depending on who you talk to, that's been throughout his entire career, has been, just winning big games in the playoffs and the Steelers as well. So those two combined, I feel like Lamar has a lot to prove. It could be a lot of pressure on him. But I think the Ravens will win, and I think the difference maker will be Derrick Henry. Bringing him in has really helped stabilize their offense. Even without Zay Flowers, Bateman has stepped up these past few weeks. Mark Andrews started to get on the road towards mid to late season scoring. And they still have Isaiah Likely there. So the Steelers' Achilles heel, I feel like, is their offense. So I think the Ravens will be able to get just enough scores, get a few stops against that Steelers offense, and they'll come away with a much-needed victory at home.
Pickens is playing this week.
Yeah.
Still going Ravens, though. I'm not going to lie. I'm not the big Lamar guy. Everybody knows that on the show. But I don't think that the Steelers really pose much of a threat for Lamar and the Ravens, at least this week. I'm going to say that, obviously, the 10-point plus spread, I think, is pretty crazy at this point. Obviously, with, again, these two teams being in the same division and then also this being the third matchup. And then, this is a team that Lamar consistently struggles with, especially, and he also just struggles in the playoffs in general. So a lot for the Ravens. Not that the Ravens are going up against here, but I think they have enough. I mean, the Steelers just don't have enough offense, I believe, to stick with the Ravens on a good day, even maybe on an average day. I don't know if the Steelers have enough offense, especially with the way Russell Wilson's been playing, but I do think that has a little bit to do with, obviously, Pickens not playing. He's in this week. They talked about also giving some plays for Fields as well. I don't know if they'll actually do that in the game. That'll be interesting to see. But, I think the Ravens kind of have what they need, at least for this matchup, and we'll kind of see what Lamar looks like for this week. Next up, we got the Broncos and the Bills. I feel like everybody's leaning one way here, but it's the playoffs. We got to talk about it. So what's up, B? What's the team you got here?
Yeah, just how we kind of analyzed the last matchup. Obviously, these two aren't division foes, but it's one of those cases where I just don't think the Broncos have enough to outscore the Bills. I know they beat the I don't even want to say the JV, like the middle school Chiefs last week, 38-0. But to be honest, that doesn't make me think any differently about the Broncos. They kind of struggled towards the end, even defensively. They let a comeback win creep them up against the Chargers and then Bengals the next week too. And obviously it's Justin Herbert and then Joe Burrow. Two really good quarterbacks. And now they have Josh Allen, who's been extra cautious of the football this year. The one thing Denver has advantage-wise over the Bills probably is their secondary versus the Bills receivers. However, we know Josh Allen's a versatile a multi-dimensional QB. He passes and he runs, and players get open because he's a threat to run and he moves around in the pocket. So I think that combined with the fact that they're going up against a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, I don't think he gets his first playoff win in his first playoff appearance. And the Bills are usually, like I said, they're the 2 seed pretty much every year, and they almost always win that first game of the playoffs. It's the next round that they typically struggle in. So, I think they'll continue to win their winning streak in the wild card game. Back in the day, the 2 seed wouldn't even get they wouldn't have to play in the first round. They get a bye week. The Cowboys were the first 2 seed to ever lose to a 7, so it's very hard for a 7 to beat a 2 in general. So I think the Bills, they are on the side of history in this case here, and they win this first round game.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Buffalo. They're at home. They have most likely the MVP of the league this year, and Josh Allen at quarterback. And the Broncos, they're a young team. They still have some improvements to make. They do have a strong defense, but I just feel like Buffalo, with the crowd and the weather, could possibly play a factor here, as always, in Buffalo. And an improved running game for the Bills as well. James Cook has had a great season, about 14 rushing touchdowns. So I'm going to take Buffalo to win at home.
Yep, definitely gonna take Buffalo to win. I love Bo Nix though, and I think the Broncos have actually had a pretty surprisingly good season. To be honest, they have a lot to build on for next season, but ultimately, no one expected them to make it this far. They've already overachieved. I think that if them making it to this point is actually a testament to how good Sean Payton is and how good the offense and overall the organization seems like it's taking a step forward this year. So, congratulations to the Broncos, but you will be losing this week to the Bills. Next up, we got the Packers and the Eagles. I'm not sure if AJ Brown is playing this week, which is kind of big for the Eagles.
AJ Brown?
Did you see the knee injury?
No, all I heard was Christian Watson isn't playing, and Jalen Hurts is obviously a little banged up, and Jordan Love's banged up. But AJ Brown in the first round again. That's breaking news to me.
I don't know if he's playing. So I saw some notification earlier about AJ
Dang.
Brown having a knee injury. So I know it's questionable. I think at this moment. So we will see what happens with the Eagles. But ultimately, does that change your pick for the game?
Well, all I remember is that it was that first Friday game in Brazil of the year, and it was a sloppy game. But I mean, obviously, you could tell it was two good teams that played each other close, and the game could have gone either way. I expect this game to be no differently. I think the Packers have a coaching advantage, but I think the Eagles have a home field advantage. And until you brought this AJ Brown news up, but even afterward, I think they have a health advantage. Because as long as Jalen Hurts isn't seeing stars anymore, he's the healthier quarterback. Because Jordan Love apparently lost feeling in his throwing arm during the season finale against the Bears, so you already know that's not 100%. And they lost Christian Watson to an ACL tear. The Packers did also end the year on a 2-game losing streak. I think it's going to be an ugly, hard-fought game. I actually think it's probably going to come down to the end, but I do think the Eagles pull it out. It's a first-round matchup, and I just don't see them losing the first round 2 years in a row. But the Packers are the 1-7 seed to advance in the playoffs, and this really isn't a 7 versus 2 like magnitude type of game if you think about it. Like the Eagles are a true 2 seed. I think the Packers they're an 11-6 team. It's not like a 9-8, 7 seed type thing. They're actually like a team who we knew was going to make the playoffs since the beginning of the year. So it's not like they snuck in. They just kind of dropped their last 2 games, and Washington won their last 2 games and surpassed them in the wild card standings. But this is going to be a hard fought game, and may the best man win. I really think both teams have a good chance, but I got to go with the Eagles.
Yeah, I got to take the Eagles at home as well. I feel like in their first matchup, the difference came down to being Saquon Barkley. He had a crazy game catching the football out of the backfield, running the football, and I think that'll come down to be the difference in this game as well. The Packers without Jair Alexander, they could struggle on the perimeter, especially if AJ Brown plays. Him and Devontae Smith are one of the top receiving duos in the league. As long as Jalen Hurts is under center for the Eagles, I'm going to take them to win at home. They have a very great defense that played this year. It'll be close because the Packers are very well coached, but Philly at home with their run game, I think they'll find a way to win in a very close one.
Eagles for me here. I don't know if I trust in the Packers, but they're just inconsistent. They're like upper tiered inconsistent though. Like I feel like you kind of know what you'll get from them like 67% of the time. I trust them 2/3 of the way. That other extra third, I don't trust them. So in the Eagles, I trust like 80%. So it's close here. I do see I could see any team winning here, but I'm gonna have to go with the Eagles. I also, like B said, cannot see them losing in the first round 2 years in a row. That would be insane. I don't know what the Eagles would start as far as changes made for next year if that happens. So I don't even want to begin to think about it. I think the Eagles get this win. Dono, your Commanders back in the playoffs. They're facing the Bucks, man. Another kind of inconsistent team. We'll kind of see what they can do this week. How do you feel about your team?
This is just a completely different matchup from when we played them in the first game of the season. They still had Chris Godwin. Bucky Irving wasn't in the game, really involved in the game plan for the Bucks at that point yet. I just feel like Washington was a different team at that point in the season. So just with how everything's transpired, and then the last time the Commanders have won a playoff game was against Tampa, in Tampa. So just with all those factors going into the game, and I feel like Jaden Daniels is much improved. He doesn't really get phased by anything. And then Marshawn Lattimore as well. It's looking like he'll play this week. We know anytime him and Mike Evans go against each other, it's an all-out war. So I feel like that could be a difference. And I'm going with Jaden Daniels. I just feel like we have the more explosive quarterback here. The Bucks, they have an excellent offense with Baker and a great running game with Bucky Irving. But I just feel like with Jaden Daniels, his difference with just how he views the game and not just his legs, but passing the football as well. But I think his legs will make the difference here in a close one. I think Washington gets the upset in Tampa.
This is the remember I told you guys before the video that there's one game that I think is the toughest game to call. I think that's this game right here, and it's kind of neat that they put it on Sunday night. I remember last time Washington was in the playoffs. They won their division at 7-9 and played the Tom Brady Buccaneers in the first round of the playoffs, and they announced right before the game that Taylor Heineke was going to start. So, like, kind of knew it was a wash there, and it ended up being a competitive game. But, like, this is like a 50-50 game right here. Washington really finished the season on a high note, in the Bucs, ever since they've had Baker Mayfield, they just did what they had to do to win that division because of the weaknesses of the other teams in that division. They're almost like I almost want to say they're like the Texans of the NFC South, except they and their division, or they had a better year than the Texans just based on like how they played throughout the year. Baker Mayfield easily had his best year in the league, and Jaden Daniels is going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year just by being the best rookie quarterback. This is such a tough game to call. I think the Bucs should win, but I actually am going to go with the rookie and the Washington Commanders here because I do think they're due for a playoff win. Pretty sure they haven't won they've won one playoff game in all of our lifetimes, and they've actually played the Bucs a lot in the first round of the playoffs. So I mean, it seems like they're either playing the Seahawks or the Bucs in the first round every time they're making it. But I think they pull it off. I just think they get that extra possession. I think they've been pretty clutch under Jaden Daniels too. So I think the game will go their way to the chance where they'll have a chance to march downfield and either kick a game-winning field goal or score a game-winning touchdown. But I just like their chances in the big moments. I think Jaden's made for it. And I'm pretty sure the winner of this game the winner of this game will probably play the actually it depends who wins, but the Bucs win, they're almost certainly going to play the Eagles. If the Eagles win, the Commanders win, they might play the Lions in the next round. I'd love to see, either of those matchups. So whoever wins, it's going to be an interesting game next week.
Yeah. I honestly still don't know where I'm going with this one.
Yeah.
I love Jaden though, man. So I honestly would feel crazy picking against him at this point from what I've seen. I'm going with the Commanders, unfortunately, even though they're on the road, and it seems like they're probably not going to win this one, if I'm being honest. But I'm going with the Commanders. I do like what the Bucs have. Baker Mayfield, obviously, he's a perennial starter at least. Like I think we know he's a good starter at this point. So it's definitely good to see his career kind of turn around in one season. But honestly, I have no football reasons. If I'm giving you, I've been being honest. I have no football reasons. I have no football reasons to give you the Commanders, but I just like the Commanders. So I'm going to go with the Commanders in this one. Yeah, I hope it works out. And then we have our last playoff matchup, which will be on Monday. That'll be the Vikings and the Rams. How do you feel about this one, B?
Man, this is such a good game, too. This is probably the second hardest game to call. And first of all, condolences to all those living in L.A. throughout these wildfires, man, and could change the location of the game, potentially put it in Arizona, I heard. But, no one seems safe in L.A. right now, and that's unfortunate. On the flip side, the Vikings obviously had a fantastic year. There's never been a 14-win wild card in the history of football. And for it to, finish the way it did last week, I feel like was demoralizing for them. They didn't even compete with the Lions. They just got completely blown out. Like, the Lions just saw them walk in their stadium and knew they were going to beat them, and they knew it was going to be easy too. And, they had the same record going into it, and they did not look like the same type of team. And Sam Darnold looks like, he finally, hit rock bottom of this year with the Vikings. He didn't look like he looked like the whole season. And I think back to when they had a 2-game losing streak earlier in the year, it was to the Lions, and they lost to the Rams the next week. And I just trust, Sean McVay's coaching and wisdom a little more than Kevin O'Connell, even though I think he's done a fantastic job since he's had that job. And obviously I just trust the veterans on the Rams like Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. And I also trust the young guys like Puka Nacua and Jared Verse on defense. I just feel like they're going to make the plays that are going to result in a victory here. And I just don't think the Vikings have the experience. They have some playmakers and they have the scheme, but they don't have the wisdom that the Rams do. And I think that pays dividends in the playoffs. Expect Justin Jefferson to still ball and have a good game. I think it'll come down at the end, but I just think the Rams have too many solid veterans.
Yeah, I'm honestly going to take the Rams as well. Seeing Sam Darnold in the big moment last week against the Lions, it makes me kind of hesitant to take them this week. And the Rams just being so well coached and having Matthew Stafford there at quarterback, that veteran leadership, a Super Bowl winner. The Rams have what it takes offensively to get it done. It just comes down to can they get that one or two key stops on defense, because the Vikings are explosive offensively. If there is a weakness on the Rams, I would say it's within their secondary. Sometimes receivers can have big days against them. So I would be a little hesitant with that, but I just think, home field didn't really matter for the Rams. Sometimes people would kind of take over their stadiums, opposing fans and stuff, but just with the coaching and the play of Matthew Stafford, I think will make the difference here. I don't think Donald's had an excellent season, don't get me wrong, but in the playoffs, it comes down to your knowledge of the game and just how many times have you been in these pressure moments. And I haven't seen it from Donald yet. I've seen it from Matt Stafford, so I'm going to take the Rams, and I think Cooper Kupp could have a big game here. He usually shows up in the playoffs for them, so I like the Rams.
Call me crazy. Give me the Vikings. I
love
like their defense, man. I really do, and I've liked their defense all season, honestly. And the Rams, I've seen them play against some bigger teams or some bigger opponents, and sometimes they just shit the bed. If I'm being honest, sometimes they just don't look good. Cooper Kupp sometimes doesn't catch anything, catches 0 balls. Pause. And Kyron Williams has had a pretty good season. I think their run game is going to be good, but I like the Vikings, man. Like Sam Darnold, obviously, they're not going to win if Sam Darnold's trash. That's just straight up. They're not going to win if Sam Darnold's trash. But I don't know if he will be trash completely. I think he can do just enough to win this game, and if the defense shows up, they have enough to win the game. So I'm going to go with the Vikings. The Rams have a good amount to build on. Honestly, they were a lot better this season than I thought they would be, especially with where their defense stands. Losing Aaron Donald this year. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Vikings. I just like the matchup better for some reason. Probably just it's the defense primarily for me.
Just one thing to say, I watched that game the other night and it showed J.J. McCarthy on the sideline. I'm not gonna lie, he looked like a little kid, bro, and it made me think there's no way they're not gonna give Sam Darnold at least a 1-year contract and bring him back. Because J.J. McCarthy looked like he weighed absolutely nothing. He didn't even look like the J.J. McCarthy calls. He looked younger than he did at Michigan, and I was just like, I don't know, man. I think you gotta. I mean, Sam Darnold's definitely earned. He's gonna get paid by somebody, but it'd probably be smartest if the Vikings just tagged him and brought him back 1 year. Because you at least want JJ to be like a dressed backup before you enter the field. Because this year he was just an IR backup. So I feel like there's a different feel to it when you actually have a uniform on and you're prepared to go in. So that'd probably be best for their team. But if Sam Darnold just plays absolutely terrible, it's gonna be really interesting because there are gonna be some desperate teams out there like the Titans and Browns, or Browns can't afford him, but like teams like the Titans and a few others who are gonna pay Sam Darnold like he's the absolute difference maker, even if they don't have good wide receivers or whatever the case may be.
They just gave Daniel Jones. They activated him. They said that he might be the number 2. If anything happens.
Yeah, in case Nick Mullins, because he's got a little more playoff experience, I guess, than Nick Mullins. But they actually beat the Vikings in a playoff game. But man, we'll see. Hopefully, in their sake, neither of those guys have to go on the field this game because they will not win if that happens.
I agree. Last but not least, I am pulling up the standings for the picks and predictions for this year. It was Bennett at 143 and 81, me 146 and 78, Donna 144 and 80s. We were all within 2 or 3 wins of each other, which is crazy.
Yeah, we didn't, I noticed throughout the year we didn't really pick too many games differently, but we all had good calls throughout the year. I just guess you had the most good calls, Mitch.
I guess so, man. Tried to keep it safe, man. Actually, I went on some whims actually some weeks, so it happens. But I was the winner this year, man. We're still gonna do the DH Gate jersey. I will send you guys the link when I find one. It will be nice and cheap. We can get that sent so I can have it for next football season. That would be great. That's going to do it for this week's playoff predictions, and that was the end of the regular season predictions. So make sure you guys comment, subscribe, all that type of stuff. Let us know your playoff predictions, who you have winning, and if your team's going to make it far this year. Does anybody have anything else to add?
See y'all next week.
Yeah, ready for the playoffs.
Wish the best for y'all teams, man.
Yeah.